This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
"25 soldiers killed, 60 missing in attacks by suspected militants in Mali." FAO says 31 African countries in need of external food assistance. And ancient art of pottery sustains livelihoods for generations in Nigeria's Kano. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers, and here's Uche with your business headlines.
Thank you, Hannah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Africa's most profitable carrier, Ethiopian Airlines, reports a 30% jump in profit. And Nigeria to cut its crude oil output to comply with OPEC targets. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Hannah.
We'll see you later, Uche. Well, in the meantime, 25 Malian soldiers have been killed while 60 others are missing after suspected jihadists attacked 2 army camps in central Mali on Monday. That's according to a government statement. The authorities earlier reported that military posts of Bolkisi and Mondoro had been targeted. Mondoro is around 130 kilometers from the town of Ndaki. The toll is among the highest suffered by Malian forces this year as they struggle to contain militant groups with links to Al-Qaeda or Islamic State that have set up operations in parts of Mali. In response, the army has launched a joint operation with forces from neighboring Burkina Faso, backed up by French troops stationed in the region. The West African country has been in conflict since 2012 when Islamists hijacked an ethnic uprising by Tuaregs in the north. Well, 31 African countries are in need of external food assistance with protracted conflicts, primarily identified as the main driver of high levels of food insecurity. That's according to a report released by the Food and Agriculture Organization. The report, titled "Crop Prospect and Food Situation," went on to say that adverse weather conditions, particularly rainfall shortages in Africa, affected food availability and access for millions of people. CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy takes a look at some of the countries affected.
1.3 million people in Burkina Faso require humanitarian assistance due to effects of conflict and food insecurity. Intercommunal conflict in Ituri, the Ebola outbreak, displacement of thousands has intensified humanitarian needs in the region. The United Nations reports that over a quarter of the country's 15.8 million people need food. Now, Chad suffers from frequent drought, limited income generating opportunities, and restricted access to social services. And protracted crisis in neighboring Nigeria and Central African Republic, civil unrest and violence in Cameroon's northwest and southwest region has seen 4.3 million people in need of food assistance. And as many as 2 million people in Kenya require food assistance due to poor livestock conditions, below average harvest, below average rainfall due to consecutive seasons of poor rainfall, higher levels of acute food insecurity, droughts and floods. And approximately 1.7 million people in Somalia need assistance.
Well, now CGTN's Kelechi M. Kalam takes a look at how families hit by conflict in Nigeria are suffering the effect of food shortages there.
A bunch of moringa leaves steaming on fire. That's the only meal Alice Sirimia, mother of 5, can cook up for herself and children. Alice fled her home in Adamawa State in the heat of Boko Haram's insurgency there. With their house, farmland and businesses destroyed, it's been difficult picking up the pieces.
It hasn't been easy at all, especially since I lost my husband. Initially, at some point, I used to break stones to help my family, but that started affecting my health negatively. Now we depend on what my son Stephen brings from his apprenticeship work.
And as the man of the house, Stephen has been trying hard to support his mother and siblings. He doesn't get paid as a trainee welder, so he depends on tips that come occasionally. But that's barely enough to cater for the family of 6.
Our boss gives us money, sometimes 500 or 1,000 naira, to wash our clothes and eat, but it doesn't come every day. Knowing what my family is going through, I would sometimes save my money and bring it home, and that is how we survive.
Assist my parents with.
Like Alice, there are millions of families who've been affected by the food shortage in Nigeria. Approximately 7.1 million people in Nigeria's northeastern region are in dire need of emergency assistance. The problem is compounded by a decade-long insurgency. Many have been totally cut off from their livelihood, predominantly farming and fishing. They're now largely dependent on government and international aid agencies for food and other supplies. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, in Somalia, food insecurity continues to displace thousands. The Horn of Africa nation has been worst affected by climate change in recent years. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billah reports now on government efforts to curb food insecurity.
For decades, Somalia continues to remain one of the most complex humanitarian crises in the world. A cycle of drought, flood, and famine continue to worsen the food security situation in the Horn of Africa nation. Estimates by the government and the UN agencies estimate that more than 1 million people in the country are food insecure. Massive displacement has been attributed as an underlying cause, with close to 3 million people displaced across the country.
We live in a society where the majority of the displaced persons are farmers. The farming community is entirely displaced, and most IDPs are from the rich agricultural areas. We are working on improving security and creating a policy that will see farmers return to their farms.
Farmers from southern Somalia have been the worst hit as conflict and insecurity continue to affect farming communities. Recent attacks on government forces along roads linking agricultural towns and Mogadishu have also affected market prices and delivery of agricultural produce to the market. However, the UN World Food Programme has begun a program that aims to return farming communities back to their regions. The program encourages maize production mainly in Afgoye and Odigle, two rich productive regions in the Lower Shabelle region.
We have 10 cooperative organizations made of 500 farmers, 250 from Afgoye and 250 from Odigle. This initiative by the World Food Programme has improved our lives, and displaced persons have returned back to their farms as a result. By the end of this year, we expect to double the quantity we produce here today.
Meanwhile, as government forces continue to wage a major campaign to dislodge Al-Shabaab from two agricultural regions that border Mogadishu, experts say that the liberation of the middle and lower Shabelle regions will go a long way in ending food security challenges and allow farmers to return back to their farms. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, for more on the food situation across Africa, we are joined by Antonio Queredo. He is FAO country representative in Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us, Antonio. Please, let's just start with how dire the situation is in Africa. With you being on the ground, paint us a picture of what the situation is really like.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Anna, for this opportunity. As you know, at FAO, we do monitor as a part of our early warning system on food and agriculture. We do monitor the food production in our continent, and quarterly we produce this report on the crop prospect and food situation in Africa. This year we have already issued, this is our third quarterly report, and we have access in our continent about 41 countries and globally, and 30 of which 31 are in Africa. And the report shows that these countries are in need of some external food assistance due to two main reasons. One is the conflict, and the second reason are due to the climate-related issues, particularly not only in our sub-region East Africa, but also in the southern Africa, when we had two cyclones that affect the production both in Madagascar, but also Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Those are the causes of the lower production, affecting a large number of our citizens in these countries.
Antonio, how have donor organizations reacted to this, with you saying that 31 countries of the countries that need this external food assistance coming from the continent? How are donor organizations reacting?
As you know, these reports are shared globally, not only internally to the UN agencies, but we do share this report with the donor agencies, and collectively they looking at this number and responding to the assistance accordingly. So in the next steps is to analyze this report, considering the results and the numbers at the regional base, and then assess the response that we need to put in place to address the food insecurity in this particular region.
Antonio,
this year, the production...
Sorry for cutting you off there, Antonio, but let's just move on to the conflict, because that was one of the things that was highlighted. Is the conflict that's taking place is what's causing a lot of the food insecurity, or one of the reasons. How is that affecting donor operations, the conflict itself?
As you know, peace and development are essential. Without peace, there is no development, and with instability, also it affects, our operation in terms of delivering food to those in need. But we have seen in a number of, particularly in West Africa, but also in some regions in Central Africa, where production has been affected due to instability. And this instability has prevented farmers to cultivate the land, and therefore the situation that we have seen in terms of decline in terms of production. For donors operation, as I mentioned, is critical that we operate in a situation of some stability that allow us to reach those in need and deliver the food to ensure that we address the insecurity that we've seen across the region in Africa.
Thank you so much, Antonio. That was Antonio Querido. He is the FAO country representative in Uganda. We move to North Africa now, where an Egyptian writer has been working for a year on a book to mark the 70 years establishment of the People's Republic of China. Fond of China's economic growth and development, Kamal Gabala named the book 70 Years of Miracles. The book documents the Egyptian author's filed research and analysis on how China shifted from poverty to welfare in just 7 decades. Here is Adele Maruki with more.
1 year ago, Kamal Gabala has decided to join the People's Republic of China's 70 years anniversary. All his life, he has been fascinated by the country's development. Gabala decided to write about how China came to be the modern state it is today. He named his book 70 Years of Miracles.
China managed to use its population to empower progress, to move from poverty to welfare. Before the 1978 reform policies, the average income was about $175. Now it's jumped to around $10,000 per capita. This, by all means, is a miracle, not only to China, but the whole world, because China has more than 1.3 billion people, which could seem as an obstacle to most nations. The world must learn from them.
When writing his book, however, Gabala says he didn't only depend on articles or written research. Instead, he focused mainly on his field visits. He has been to China 14 times.
To see for yourself how the country changed in the past decades is much different than reading about it. Therefore, all what is written in the book are personally verified information. I've put them together for the Egyptian and Arab readers. I consider this a big achievement. The first miracle I started the book is Shenyang City, which was extremely poor, suffered from terrorism and violence. Today, it's on its way to be among the most developed cities in China.
Gabala believes the Arab world needs to closely look at China as a case study of success. He believes the future holds bigger opportunities for the Arab world and China together, especially as the Belt and Road Initiative shapes up.
Egypt is starting to see the benefits of being part of that initiative. There's a promising future in the Egyptian-Chinese relations because of that project. I think that the initiative is going to be another Chinese miracle. Since ancient history, the civilizations of China and Egypt have always complemented one another. That extends to date.
70 Years of Miracles documents an Egyptian perspective to China's growth for the Arab world. Gabala was keen to publish his book as the 70th anniversary celebrations begin. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, Chinese living in South Africa have praised President Xi Jinping's keynote speech at the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Many Chinese people living in South Africa watched the grand military parade and mass parade at Tiananmen Square on television. Many are proud of their strengths that their motherland China has showcased to the world.
在庆祝中华人民共和国成立70周年的
In celebration of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, the overseas Chinese living in Cape Town, South Africa, also listened to our Chinese President Xi Jinping's keynote speech and watched the grand military parade on TV. President Xi's keynote speech summarized the great achievements made by People's Republic of China and the difficult course it had been through in the past 70 years.
新中国成立70周年庆典
Speaking of our grand celebration of the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, I think such a solemn and important moment should not be missed by the whole world. As overseas Chinese, we are longing for this great moment. Like me, not only myself, but also my children watch the grand celebration in different places of the world. We are really excited and amazed to see the celebration. We are proud of the strength of our motherland.
We go to Kenya now, where the Southern China Airlines operating in the country is the 6th largest airline in the world, flying to nearly 200 destinations globally. The airline launched its Nairobi route in 2015 and now has 4 flights a week between Kenya and China. The airline employs locals to manage its operations in Nairobi, and one of them, a supervisor, Judith Nashpai, says she is living her dream.
喂，你好。
Passenger supervisor Judith Nashipai has worked with Southern China Airlines at their Nairobi office for the past 3 years.
My job involves interacting with passengers most of the time. I need to know the bookings, the catering for the passengers, to make sure that the general declaration for the crew is on board. It's not hard, but at the same time it's not easy, because if you mess with the job, you're going to mess the whole flight. Okay, 谢谢。
Nashipai studied in China for 5 years, attaining a bachelor degree in Chinese language and culture before returning home in 2014. Southern China Airlines is the world's 6th largest passenger carrier, operating flights to over 190 destinations globally in 35 countries. The airline launched flights between Guangzhou and Nairobi in August 2015. In June this year, it launched direct flights from Nairobi to Changsha, expanding its base in East Africa.
We are going to see the number of passengers flying to Changsha from Nairobi, and that will determine if we are going to increase the flight.
She says studying Chinese language and culture has been a huge advantage in her field and is put to use every day at work.
It has been a big advantage for China Southern, I must say that, because during check-in or arrivals, a lot of passengers are Chinese, and some of them, they don't speak English. So I've always been there for them to assist in translation. Whatever they don't understand, I have to step in.
In 2018, Kenya received 81,000 arrivals from China, a 4% growth from the previous year. Chinese tourists spent on average $3,000 per person on location destination on their most recent overseas travels. Most of the Chinese visitors to Kenya will end up touring the country's world-renowned national parks and coastal retreats. Chances are, once the holiday is over, they'll interact with Judith Nashipai as they board their flights.
I enjoyed working with the China Southern because before my dream was to work with an airline, which came true. But it's challenging, especially during the high season, because we have a lot of passengers.
Currently, the airline has 4 flights to Nairobi each week, and Nashipai says she can't imagine working anywhere else. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, it's time now for us to take a short break. In return, we have more stories for you, including South Africa hosts bi-national commission with Nigeria to establish structure for bilateral relations. And Egypt recruits bloggers and influencers to market the country.
At the Great Wall of China.
你好。
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. We go to South Africa now, where the country has just hosted the 9th session of the Bi-National Commission with Nigeria. The BNC was born out of a commitment by South Africa and Nigeria to effectively structure bilateral relations through the establishment of a Bi-National Commission between the two countries. CGTN's Julissa Jamela has more.
Two of Africa's largest economies, South Africa and Nigeria. The two countries are meeting on the back of xenophobic attacks that occurred in South Africa in the past month. Both countries are cognizant of that period and are dealing with it. South Africa considers Nigeria a great friend and strategic partner, and that both countries are facing similar challenges.
We meet here today in challenging times as our economies are faced with huge, but I believe not insurmountable challenges. South Africa is determined to continue to implement and develop strategies directed at ensuring economic growth, socio-economic development, and inclusive prosperity for the mutual benefit of all our people and the people of Nigeria.
On the other hand, Nigeria sees South Africa as key to the development of the continent.
The various areas of cooperation that we treasure so much between our two countries come in various sectors. In the area of security, we appreciate enormously the cooperation that exists between South Africa and Nigeria in the area of defense. As you know, the big challenge that we face in Nigeria with global terrorism, an existential threat, we are happy to see the support and the strong support that we're receiving from South Africa.
The gathering is about assessing progress in the implementation program of the two countries' bilateral agreements since their last meeting. Tasks that are being agreed to during the Binational Commission will lay a solid base for expanding economic cooperation and achieving increased levels of prosperity.
Our two countries are great countries of the African continent. The success of Nigeria and the success of South Africa are critical to the success of Africa, and so we hold an important obligation in that regard.
We are bound closely in so many ways. In Nigeria, we have major South African companies doing business in Nigeria and making a very important contribution to our country.
Several agreements and memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, between the two countries are currently at various stages of implementation. The Binational Commission meeting is a precursor to a state visit on Thursday. President Cyril Ramaphosa will host his Nigerian counterpart, President Muhammadu Buhari, at the Union Buildings. The two leaders are expected to discuss ways to strengthen social, economic, political, and cultural relations. Yuli Sanjamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
Well, the Ministry of Tourism Egypt has reached out to social media bloggers and influencers as a new form of marketing the country to the world. Tourism is a major source of foreign exchange to the North African nation. Egypt attracted 14 million visitors in the 2018-2019 season. Yasser Hakim has more.
Social media has become a powerful source of information, and Egypt's Ministry of Tourism wanted to exploit this medium as its main marketing tool. The campaign is called People to People.
It has a vision to create a sustainable tourism sector by strengthening Egypt's competitiveness through structural reforms that are in line with international standards. One of these structural reforms has to do with marketing and promotion. And as we know today, when we look at international trends of travel, what attracts tourists most is what they see on social media. Everyone makes their decision of what they're going to buy, where they're going to go, with what they see on their phone. So being present in a very effective way, in a contemporary way, in ways that deliver the message around our campaign. Our campaign is based on people to people, as we see here.
Famous bloggers, also known as influencers, were invited on a tour to Egypt, and they posted their experiences to millions of their followers.
This is my 9th time here in Egypt, and it's always a pleasure to stay here. I have discovered another part of Egypt, Cairo, Alexandria, and El Alamein, and was amazing, like always. It's very important this kind of events and this kind of tour, because Italy need to Italian people love Egypt and to come in Egypt, but it's nice to see and discover the better part of your land, of your country.
I think that's a really good way to show a place to stay, because when you see common ads for places to stay, it's not that personal. But when you can follow someone someone like an influencer you follow on a trip, you get like organic posts from everything they do. It's more like coming with a friend on a trip.
Their posts would naturally create a positive feedback.
I first came to Egypt about 2 years ago, and my videos here were very successful. I really loved the country, and I have had so many people write to me and say, you convinced me to go to Egypt, and your videos made me want to come here, which is really inspiring to me, but just to know that I inspired people to come, because I love Egypt. So.
This is a new marketing approach by the tourism sector in Egypt, aside from the conventional media campaigns.
Having international influencers who come to the country, go to different destinations, tell the story in their own way, explain their own story, is the best way to attract more visitors to the country.
Statistics show that tourist inflow to Egypt has increased by 35% year-on-year in 2018-2019, and officials hope social media campaigns will help push that number even further in the coming years. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
A large number of inhabitants in Nigeria's northwest city of Kano still hold on to the ancient ways of life. One practice that stands out in most households is that of pottery. It's a practice that has been handed down from generations past and has become a major means of survival for many families. CGTN's Deji Batmo says more.
He is one of the most prolific potters in Kano and has been in the art for over 20 years. Abdurrahim Muhammad was born into the pottery business and delved into it fully after leaving secondary school over 3 decades ago. Today, his own children are taking after him. All but one of his 13 children are now budding potters.
This is the only business I know. I met my grandparents doing it, and then my own parents taught me the art. I started learning it at the age of 6, and after several trials and errors, I mastered the art and began teaching my younger siblings.
Muhammad and his children now work as a team. While the father is busy molding his own design, the children are either getting the water needed for the work or even molding theirs elsewhere in the expansive compound. Pottery is the only means of sustenance for the family, Muhammad says.
I have achieved a lot with the pottery business. With the proceeds from this, I was able to build my own house, take care of family and send my children to school. As we speak, I have a child studying in the university. I pay his fees and everything all from this business. I honestly cannot complain. God has been kind to me.
Virtually everyone in this village is into pottery. It's a strong tradition that has survived several generations and is now an important source of livelihood for the villagers. This is where Muhammad and other potters in the community come to display their artworks. The roadside is their own local market, and it's where people come to buy their works. On display is an array of rainbow-colored clay pots, cups, stoves, kettles, and several others. The works are a clear testament of how good they are at their craft.
People come here from far away to buy products. Some of them resell them for profits. Our products go as far as Saudi Arabia and some cities here in Nigeria like Maiduguri, Gombe, Kaduna, Bauchi, and several other places.
We would appreciate if the government could come give us a space to sell our products instead of selling on the roadside like this. We would also like the government to help us secure a designated place to get our clay.
While they wait and hope for the market to be set up someday, Muhammad and his fellow potters are also hoping the insurgency in the country's northeast is ended soon, because it is now taking a serious toll on their business. Deji Batmos, CGTN, Kano.
Well, traditions definitely worth holding on to. Well, joining us now for your business news is Uche.
Thank you, Hannah. And here's a look at what's coming up. Africa's most profitable carrier, Ethiopian Airlines, reports a 30% jump in profit. And Nigeria to cut its crude oil output to comply with OPEC targets.
Business in Africa is at the crossroads, where opportunity meets innovation, where profitable new markets collide with global trends. From the sound of an African bell on a stock market's floor to the shout of the trader in a bustling free market, it's colorful, vibrant, and exotic. CGTN stands at the gateway to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. From Morocco to South Africa, we talk to the deal makers and actors who fuel its engines of growth. Only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Africa Africa's most profitable carrier, Ethiopian Airlines, has reported a 29% rise in operating revenue for the fiscal year to July 2019. Now, the state-owned carrier reported revenues of 114.6 billion birr, which is just about $3.9 billion, supported by a surge in passenger numbers. The airline flew roughly 12 million passengers during the period, helping to cushion an increase in fuel costs of about 25%. Now, at the moment, Ethiopian Airlines is implementing a 15-year strategic plan, which it calls Vision 2025. This has resulted in the airline becoming the leading aviation group on the continent. And to Nigeria now, the country will cut its crude oil output to comply with the output target for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Now, the country's September crude oil and condensate output was between 2.1 and 2.2 million barrels per day. Going forward, however, Mele Kolo Kiari of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says the country hopes to raise oil production to about 3 million barrels per day in the next 2 to 3 years. The 14-nation OPEC agreed in December with non-OPEC partners, including Russia, to reduce supply by 1.2 million barrels per day from the start of this year. OPEC's share of the cut is about 800,000 barrels per day, to be delivered by 11 members, with exemptions for Iran, Libya and Venezuela. According to a recent Reuters survey, Nigeria had pumped beyond its quota by 265,000 barrels per day in September. And South Africa's biggest mining labor union, the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, or AMCU, has now referred its ongoing wage dispute to outside mediators. The union is in talks with platinum giants Anglo American and Sibanye Gold. Take a look.
Currently, we've declared the dispute with Anglo Plates and also with Sibanye Stillwater. So I hope and trust that today we've got a mass meeting with the Impala to give the feedback, of which I believe we're also going to declare the dispute with them. But however, we believe that under the CCMA we might find the light at the end of the day. Hence I'm saying that we believe maybe within the CCMA we might find each other. But it's not to say we are scared for a strike. No, we are not scared of it. But we are saying, can't we, for a change, reach an agreement without a strike? That is what we are saying.
And still in South Africa, the World Youth Summit has concluded in Johannesburg. The event focuses on finding solutions to key challenges which affect the youth in the country. Well, CGTN's Yolisa Njamela was there, and she brings us up to speed.
The World Youth Summit is a 3-day United Nations simulation for international students. Participants engage themselves into the dynamics of international relations. They do this by assuming the roles of world leaders and influential decision makers.
Our main focus is youth. We are giving the voice, we are empowering them, we're giving them a platform to come speak about the countries, come and speak about the global issues that the entire international community itself in the United Nations they are facing.
I started World Youth Summit last year, and my objective was to bring together the youth from all around the world in one platform to discuss about issues going on around them. Also to learn how to approach their problem in a critical and ambitious way. We are stimulating the United Nations because first we believe that the United Nations is the highest authority when it comes to relationship between countries. So we want to teach the fundamentals of the United Nations to delegate.
The summit also presents an opportunity for these delegates to improve their skills in many domains, be it leadership, negotiations, and public speaking, among others, and to understand key tenets such as the importance of networking.
First of all, the network. Network is very important in life. When you know people from all around the horizon, really you are lucky. So the network, the negotiation skills that they are going to learn, the diplomatic skill that they are going to learn, the political and the approach, the ambitious and the critical approach of problems that they are going to learn.
Delegates from different countries are discussing issues affecting the youths, including unemployment, violent crimes, forced marriages, how youths can access education, and new technologies, especially the advent of the fourth industrial revolution. With the fourth industrial revolution upon us, young people are continuously implored to engage with governments both at local and national levels in delivering policies and programs on the ground. The founders of the World Youth Summit believe that with forums such as these, youth will become conscious and more focused in order to influence positively important decisions taken by their governments. Yodisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But coming up later on Global Business Africa, Kenya's central bank reports that $2 billion in old 1,000 shilling notes was swapped, but another $70 million remains unaccounted for. We'll be looking at the success of that process. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Uche. Well, we still have more news coming up, and you can expect this. Tanzania and India collaborate on filmmaking in bid to promote tourism.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. We delve into the world of entertainment now, with India's famous film industry is setting its sights on a new filming location, Africa. Tanzania's tourist board says it's in talks with Bollywood to start producing films in the country. In a bid to increase tourism between India and Tanzania, at least 40 Indian actors, dancers and celebrities will head to Tanzania to work with local talent. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more on this story.
Daudi Michael, famously known as Duma, has been in the film industry for over a decade and is one of Tanzania's biggest stars. Daudi says taking advantage of Tanzania's beautiful landscape for filmmaking can be a challenge.
Sometimes you can write a story that requires being filmed in Ngorongoro or Manyara, but when you start thinking about the process of getting the permit, it takes a long time, because in those sectors they don't see film as a tool to promote tourism.
Bollywood is the third biggest film industry in the world, with stars that have even crossed over to Hollywood. Actors like Duma will have an opportunity to work alongside and learn from India's best filmmakers.
Daudi says the local movie industry's glory days are over. Stands like these used to be filled with films produced in the country. But now most of the DVDs here are foreign releases. He and others in the industry hope that this new program can usher in a new age from filmmaking in Tanzania.
It's not only India's filmmaking expertise that is promising to Tanzania, but also its large number of outbound tourists. According to the Tanzanian Tourist Board, India estimates that 50 million Indian tourists will travel worldwide by 2020, and they want more of them to come to Tanzania.
If you look at how much Tanzania is attracting out of this number, it is very small. Last year we had only 48,000. Do we think, given the potential of travel market of India, we should do something?
Tourism contributes 17.5% of Tanzania's GDP and employs over 4 million people. Its governing body is hoping that this program will raise awareness of Tanzania's attractions, boost the film industry, and provide employment.
So I'm happy that they are interested in a number of studios here. They're also interested in working with the local artists here. So that will be expanding the benefit of this mission coming to Tanzania. So it will be tourism, but again, to be entertainment that will take advantage of the mission from India.
The Bollywood team have already visited and shortlisted filming locations such as Serengeti, Zanzibar, and some cultural hotspots. So Daudi, Michael, and many others are looking forward to showcasing their talents and for the cameras to focus on the beauty of Tanzania. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Well, let's not talk dance. And of course, there are 1,000,001 dance steps in Africa. Almost every culture has its own dance and dance steps. However, some of these dances are actually disappearing. But a Nigerian dance group known as Elevators NG are making sure local African dances remain relevant. They've created what they call trado hip-hop dance and are getting ready to take their dance style to the global stage. CGTN's Deji Badmos has more.
Their moves might seem easy, but make no mistake, a lot of hard work has gone into putting this choreography together. The team of 3, 2 brothers and their friend, make up the Elevators NG dance group. They meet every week to brainstorm on dance styles, reach a consensus on a theme for a dance routine, and practice for hours before they come on stage. But sometimes the routine is unplanned and spontaneous.
Not all of our dances we put out there were practiced in the studio. Some of these dances may just come as an idea while we're talking about something and the adrenaline starts flowing everywhere. You see someone starts moving to something and the other person wants to learn that thing, and before you know, we've created a routine, just jokingly like that.
They've been dancing together for over 10 years now. Their journey as a professional dance troupe began at a period when they were experiencing delays in getting admission into the university.
We had nothing doing but dancing because dance just seemed to be that soothing relief to all of our ill feelings and experiences and hard times that came throughout that period. So dance just seemed to be the guy there, you know, helping us get through all those times. It became a passion gradually from there.
That passion would eventually take them across the country, performing on different stages, taking part and winning several national dance competitions, and ultimately getting global recognition.
Presently, what we're having right now under our belt is World of Dance Nigeria, which we just want to represent Nigeria in Los Angeles, USA.
And for that World Dance competition in the United States, they want to use the opportunity to launch their new dance style, Trado Hip-Hop, a fusion of traditional African dance styles with hip-hop dance.
Our proper traditional dance culture is gradually going extinct. In fact, there are endangered dance cultures in Nigeria right now. There are too many dance cultures we don't even know about anymore in Nigeria. And the reason for this is to place at par our dance culture and the hip-hop dance culture, which is actually a trend.
Their Trado hip-hop concept is generating a lot of attention and has been a talking point at several dance seminars. They're looking at taking the concept beyond the stage.
Trado hip-hop won't just be on the dance aspect. It also has to go through fashion, you know, music and every other thing. And we want to project a future that will hold great things for dance artists.
They've trained and continue to groom young dancers. And someday soon, Elevators NG plans to set up a dance academy to teach their Trado hip-hop dance styles and other genre of traditional dances and arts. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
And on that energetic note, we take a short break and return. Your sports news, including world champion Sifan